I didn't even know our love had rules until I began losing a game I never agreed to play. At first, it was so simple.
Warm. Honest.
Love that didn't need to be explained because it simply was. We laughed easily. We planned without keeping score. When I succeeded, he celebrated me. When he won, I stood with him, and I was proud. It was snugly as partnership, the two people walking in tandem at the same speed. I thought that was love. But then, so gradually I couldn't say when it happened, something changed. He started measuring things. At first, it was harmless. Or that's what I told myself it was. Little comments wrapped in humor. I earn more than you do now, he'd say, grinning like it was a joke we were both supposed to share. I got promoted more quickly than you, he'd casually throw in, examining my face a little too closely as I tried to laugh. I smiled back. I clapped for him. I meant it. I loved seeing him win. Only I knew he wasn't just contributing successes. What I had failed to understand was that he was also dumping failings, something beneath the recognition of man. He was collecting points. Every conversation became a comparison. Every milestone became a scoreboard. If I'd had a good day, he could find a way to top that as well. If I ever faltered, he would cite it as proof of why he was ahead. When I informed him that I was proud of something great I had done, he agreed, and we quickly changed the subject to be about him. I had begun to shrink my joy without even knowing it. Not that I wasn't proud of myself, but because celebrating myself appeared to annoy him. My wins made him quiet,
Distant. Sometimes sarcastic.
sometimes cold. And I learned, subconsciously, to appease him so he didn't feel threatened. That's when the competition ceased being invisible and began to hurt. He began to test me. He would ask whom I was trying to impress when I dolled up. If I was reaching for my goals, he would say I'd also neglect him. If anyone complimented me, he'd follow with a disclaimer. They didn't say it like that. You're overthinking it. They say that to everyone. But when he was praised, he sucked it down like oxygen. Expected admiration. Expected applause. My husband wanted me to take a back seat and let him stand in the spotlight. I reminded myself that relationships were all about compromise. I did not know that compromise meant self-erasure. It was an uneventful night. Nothing dramatic, just friends and some laughs. Somebody wrote and asked me how my work was going, and for the first time in ages, I told the truth. I spoke confidently. I didn't minimize myself. I felt visible. I glanced across the room and saw his face. Not pride. Not happiness. Something else. Something tight. Calculating. Almost offended. In a car, that night. Seething silence. When I asked what was the matter, he took a deep breath and said, "You think you love having people pay attention to you now, don't you?" That was the moment that something broke. I tried to explain. I wasn't competing. I wasn't showing off. I was just existing. But he didn't hear that. What he listened to was a challenge. From then on, everything escalated. He began pointing out what I did not have. You're not as driven as me. The pressure I face, you couldn't handle it. You're fortunate that I even you out. Lucky. As if love was charity. At least that was the impression I got from him, as if he was doing me a favor by hanging out with me. I began doubting myself, questioning my worth. I'm not good enough. I keep thinking about myself if I compare with his standards, and then he changes them once they are inside of me reaching it. He needed to be ahead. Always. Every time I grew, he would just move the finish line. When I faltered, he loomed higher. And it was the question I'd ask myself over and over again, late at night, staring at the ceiling as he lay next to me sound asleep. When did love become something for me to win over? And the worst part wasn't the comparisons. It was how very alone I felt within the relationship. If I ever needed comfort, he sold solutions as long as they validated his superiority. When I wanted understanding, he lectured me. When the time came for me to lean on him, he made it very clear how much he had already done for me. Everything came with a receipt. Everything came with conditions. I began saying sorry for things that weren't my fault. For my emotions. For my ambition.
For my sadness.
For taking up space. And he retreated from every apology without making one himself. Because he believed what was happening in his head, that's why. That final moment came not with a boom and shouting. It arrived quietly,
Cruelly.
in the context of a not-quite fight. I told him I felt unseen.
He laughed.
Not loudly, not mockingly, just enough. And then he'd say, "You're too sensitive. You take everything personally. You always think you're in competition with me." I recall feeling the silence in my chest when I learned the truth. I wasn't competing.
He was.
I was just trying to love him. And in the clarity of this moment, I saw the whole relationship for what it was, without illusion. Not an equal partnership, not a shared journey, but a competition where my job was to lose gracefully so he could feel stronger.
I didn't yell.
I didn't cry. I didn't explain myself again.
I just stopped trying.
Leaving wasn't dramatic either. There was no last speech that did it for him. No sudden waking for him. People like him don't wake up one day and just decide to stop competing. They need someone else to lose to. He told me I was a quitter as I walked away. Of being weak. Of not fighting for us. But love wasn't supposed to feel like a battle. And peace should never feel like defeat. The strangest part came after. The quiet. No comparisons. No scorekeeping. No subtle digs. No endless struggle to prove to people that I am of value. Just silence. And then, slowly, relief. I began to hear myself think again. I started celebrating myself again. I began to recall who I was before I thought love demanded that I become smaller. He tried to come back once. Not with an apology, but a challenge. With things that reminded me of what he had, what he'd achieved, how great he was doing without me. I smiled. Not because it hurt, but since I now knew something he never would. Love isn't about being ahead. It's about walking together. And I was never losing. I was playing the wrong game with the wrong person. Now, when I remember him, instead of feeling anger, I feel clarity. He didn't break me. He revealed himself. And when he made a contest of our love that I never initiated, inadvertently providing me with the one thing he could never give while we were together. Freedom.